The subtle shift after marriage. Think about what happens to most men after they get married. First, their friend circle starts to shrink. The weekend hangouts, late-night calls, and spontaneous road trips slowly fade. Guy time becomes a luxury, one that often feels selfish. Next, hobbies are redefined. If they don't serve the family unit, they're often seen as distractions. Fishing becomes irresponsible. Gaming becomes immature. Even reading a book in silence becomes unavailable. Free time? Absorbed into the machinery of household responsibilities, fixing things, driving errands, managing bills, and navigating endless obligations that are no longer shared. They're expected. Then there's the money. It stops being his. It becomes ours, with the unspoken understanding that she'll likely control the flow, where it goes, how it's spent, what's prioritized. And no, this isn't a glitch in modern relationships. It's not poor communication or bad luck. It's by design. Because when a man's world shrinks to fit the family unit, he becomes more predictable, more reliable, and, most importantly, more controllable. His value to the system increases as his freedom decreases. Voluntary imprisonment. What makes this system so effective is that men don't just comply, they cooperate. They hand over their autonomy piece by piece, believing it's the price of being a good man. He thinks, this is what husbands do. He wants to be dependable, committed, loyal. He tells himself sacrifice is love, that putting her first is honorable. And so he helps build the very prison he ends up trapped inside. This isn't about weakness, it's about misplaced nobility. The traits that make men valuable, duty, loyalty, responsibility, are the exact levers used to control them. His best qualities become the chains that hold him in place. He trades self-direction for approval, freedom for comfort, purpose for peacekeeping. But peacekeeping isn't peace. It's submission wrapped in good intentions. The man isn't just being domesticated, he's participating in his own domestication. And he doesn't even realize it, because resistance feels selfish, while compliance feels righteous. That's the trap, the language of captivity. Look closely at the words we use to describe marriage. Ball and chain, getting hitched, taking the plunge. None of these phrases speak of joy, growth, or adventure. They speak of loss, restriction, and even danger. And it's not just slang, it's cultural truth hidden in humor. We laugh it off because acknowledging the seriousness would be too painful. But deep down, men know that marriage often represents a surrender, not a celebration. The wedding might be a party, but what follows is rarely freedom. It's routine, obligation, silent compromise. We mask our unease in jokes, but jokes have roots in reality. Even the language admits what society won't say out loud. For many men, marriage is not a partnership, it's containment, psychological gratitude for exploitation. Here's where the trap gets darker. Not only are men controlled, but they're trained to be grateful for it. We're told, happy wife, happy life. It sounds innocent, even wise, but it hides a brutal message. Her happiness is your responsibility. Yours is irrelevant. This isn't partnership, it's servitude. Men are programmed to believe their emotional state doesn't matter, that their discomfort is selfish, that their pain should be hidden so the relationship can function. But if only one person's needs are prioritized, it's not love. It's emotional slavery with good branding. She becomes the sun. He becomes a planet, orbiting her moods, managing her stress, minimizing his own presence just to keep the peace. And what's worse, he thinks this is noble. He thinks he's doing it right. That's not maturity. That's indoctrination, erasing the male identity. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone." Modern marriage challenges that idea at every level. because the longer a man stays in a relationship where his needs are sidelined, the more he loses sight of who he really is. It starts with small compromises, skipping guys' night, watching her shows instead of his, deferring to her preferences in social settings. Harmless, right? But these aren't isolated events. They're steps in a long erosion of identity. Each act of accommodation chips away at his agency until eventually his life reflects her needs more than his own values. He becomes what she needs him to be, a provider, a fixer, a father, a listener, but not himself. And the scariest part, he often doesn't notice it's happening until it's too late. By the time he does, he's forgotten what his life looked like before she was the center of it. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Courtship versus post-marriage dynamics. In the beginning, she's everything. She laughs at his jokes, supports his hobbies, keeps the sex passionate and frequent. She's agreeable, low maintenance, and emotionally generous. This is not an act, it's courtship biology in action. Her evolutionary drive is pushing her to secure long-term commitment. She optimizes herself to be chosen, and when he chooses her, when the ring is on the finger or the move-in date is set, something begins to shift. Slowly, the dynamic reverses. Sex becomes less frequent and more conditional. Shared interests become less relevant unless they serve her goals. Her demands increase. Her flexibility decreases. The woman who once tried to impress him now expects to be impressed. Again, this isn't manipulation, it's programming. Once the relationship is secured, her biology shifts focus from attracting to extracting. He's no longer being courted, he's being harvested. The man who doesn't understand this shift will feel blindsided. He'll wonder what happened to the woman he fell for. The truth? She never left. She simply completed the mission her biology designed her for, the conditional nature of love. Most men want to believe their wife loves them for who they are, but reality is colder. Her love is based on your utility. It's not your soul, personality, or potential she loves most. It's your function, your ability to provide, protect, support, solve. And when that function falters, whether through job loss, health issues, or emotional fatigue, the love often falters too. This isn't cynicism, it's statistical. Women initiate 70 to 80% of divorces, and not necessarily because of abuse or betrayal. Often it's simply because the value exchange changed. You stopped giving as much as you used to, or she believed she could get better elsewhere. That's the brutal honesty most men never hear. She didn't stop loving you, she stopped needing you. Economic and legal exploitation. Even if a man recognizes the imbalance and tries to exit, he often can't, because divorce isn't an escape. It's continued financial servitude with no emotional return. Family courts, alimony, child support. These are the systems that ensure a man keeps providing for a family structure he can no longer access. You lose the home, lose the family, lose time with your kids, and you still pay for it. The exploitation doesn't end with the marriage. In many ways, it intensifies afterward, and society has normalized this. If a man complains, he's labeled bitter or irresponsible. But this isn't about ducking responsibility. It's about acknowledging a truth. The system is built on one-sided sacrifice, psychological warfare. Marriage doesn't just tax a man financially, it destroys him psychologically. He becomes the emotional sponge of the household, solving problems, fixing moods, absorbing anxiety. His own needs are last, if ever acknowledged. Over time, he stops expressing them altogether. He learns that speaking up creates more conflict, so he stays silent, suppresses his anger, smiles through the discomfort. Psychologists call this learned helplessness, a state where, after repeated failures to escape or assert, the person simply gives up trying. He becomes reactive, not proactive, a support beam for someone else's emotions rather than the architect of his own life. Eventually, he develops a kind of domestic Stockholm syndrome. He defends the very structure that's eroding him. He tells himself it's worth it, that this is maturity, that real men suffer in silence. But that's not maturity. That's mental defeat disguised as nobility, cultural reinforcement of male servitude. Why do so many men fall for this trap? Because every voice around them tells them it's the right thing to do. Movies glorify the self-sacrificing husband. Religion praises the man who lays down his life for his family. Friends and fathers tell him that's just how it is. Even other men, already trapped in the system, reinforce the lie to avoid facing their own pain. Misery needs company. To question the system is to question masculinity itself. So the man adapts, he conforms, he sacrifices his desires for social approval and female validation. But approval is fleeting, and the cost is permanent. The illusion of fulfillment through marriage. Young men are told that marriage is the ultimate goal, the milestone that signifies success, maturity, and completeness. But no one warns them what happens when you build your entire sense of worth around one person's happiness. When that happiness fades or turns against you, you're left with nothing of your own. The moment a man makes his wife the center of his emotional world, he loses his power. She becomes the source of validation, purpose, and identity. And that dependence turns love into leverage. Her moods control his peace. Her approval defines his worth. Her attention becomes the oxygen he breathes. That's not connection. That's emotional captivity, evolution, and female strategy. Here's the hard truth. Women aren't consciously trying to manipulate or harm men. They're acting out evolutionary strategies that have worked for generations. The women who were best at extracting resources, securing protection, and maintaining commitment passed on their genes. Those strategies became instinct. So when a woman tests your emotional strength, withholds affection, or shifts from agreeable to demanding, it's not because she's evil. It's because those behaviors helped her ancestors survive. Her biology is scanning for utility, for provision, for dominance. And if you don't understand this programming, you become its victim. You take it personally. You get reactive. You fall into the emotional quicksand she didn't even know she was creating. Strategic thinking versus emotional hope. Most men, when faced with these dynamics, think they can fix it by being better. They double down on effort, improve communication, buy gifts, make sacrifices. But they're trying to negotiate with instincts, and that's a losing game. You can't logic your way out of biological patterns. You can only stop playing roles that set you up to lose. You don't fix the system by doing more. You fix it by changing how you relate to it. The man who approaches marriage with emotion becomes prey. The man who approaches it with clarity becomes immune. The indispensable man is dispensable. Here's the paradox. The more essential you become to a woman's lifestyle, the less she sees you as a person. She stops valuing your presence and starts valuing your function. You're not her partner. You're her provider, her problem solver, her emotional shock absorber. And if you ever fail in that role, she doesn't see a human struggling. She sees a broken tool. The more you give up your individuality to be needed, the faster she forgets you're an individual at all. That's why indispensable men are easiest to replace. Because when your value is based only on what you do, not who you are, she'll find someone else to do it the moment you stop. Psychological and health consequences. Married men die younger. They suffer more depression. Many lose their fire, their edge, their purpose. They walk through life like ghosts, reliable, productive, obedient, but empty. Why? Because they're not just under stress. They're under chronic emotional exploitation dressed up as love. It wears them down over time, not through big events, but through 1,000 quiet surrenders, opinions withheld, emotions suppressed, dreams deferred. And when they finally break down, society blames them. You should have spoken up. You should have gone to therapy. You should have been more in touch with your feelings. No one admits the system is designed to break them. The power of low expectations. Schopenhauer once said, "The safest way of not being very miserable is not to expect to be very happy." Applied to relationships, this is revolutionary. Stop expecting marriage to bring fulfillment, happiness, or unconditional love. Stop believing it will complete you. That's the fantasy. Instead, treat marriage like a contract. What are the terms? What do you gain? What do you lose? What's enforceable? You don't invest in a business without reading the fine print. So why do you enter lifelong emotional and financial commitments based on feelings? Expectations are the seeds of disappointment. Eliminate the illusion, and you eliminate the suffering. Strategic relationships versus emotional fantasies. You must stop approaching relationships emotionally and start approaching them strategically. This doesn't mean becoming cold, it means becoming clear. Ask, does this relationship enhance my life or shrink it? Am I compromising my values, time, purpose, or peace? What do I gain? Don't trade your mission for her comfort. If your life revolves around her moods, you've already lost. She becomes the GPS, and you're just along for the ride. But when your path is so compelling, she must either keep up or step aside. You remain in control. Real partnership happens when two whole people walk beside each other, not when one drags the other behind. Observing behavior over words. Here's what most men never learn. Watch what she does, not what she says. She may tell you she wants a kind, emotionally available, empathetic man, and maybe she thinks that's true. But watch her actions. Does she reward the man who drops everything for her, or the one who keeps his priorities intact? Does she chase the one who showers her with attention, or the one who's sometimes unavailable? Her words reflect social ideals. Her behavior reflects biological truth. Women are drawn to men who have options, who demonstrate strength, who lead, not plead. If you want to win the psychological game, stop playing by the rules she talks about and start responding to what her instincts actually respect. Psychological sovereignty is magnetic. The man who doesn't need anyone becomes irresistible. He isn't cold. He isn't distant. He's full of purpose, peace, and power. He doesn't seek validation. He radiates it. Most men are like open books, begging for approval, apologizing for their desires, reshaping themselves for attention. The sovereign man does none of this. He builds a life that's so compelling that anyone who enters it must add to it, not become the center of it. That's why women are drawn to him. He's not chasing, he's choosing. He doesn't beg for love, he selects connection. And that selection holds more weight than 1,000 declarations of devotion, because real attraction is based on strength, not sacrifice. Final message. Consciousness is the key. This isn't about hating women. It's not about avoiding relationships. It's about waking up. The real danger isn't what others do to you, it's what you allow through ignorance, programming, and neediness. You don't need to be bitter. You need to be clear. Marriage, like anything else, is a contract, a structure, a system. It can serve you or trap you, but that depends on how you enter it. Stop living on autopilot. Stop believing you'll be rewarded for being nice, patient, giving, and endlessly available. Start observing. Start choosing. Start building a life that doesn't depend on being chosen. When you stop needing relationships to complete you, you finally attract the ones that align with you. And if none do, you're still complete. The choice isn't between love and loneliness. It's between conscious partnership and psychological slavery. Schopenhauer said, All satisfaction is really and essentially always negative, meaning freedom is found not by getting more, but by needing less. Your goal isn't to be needed, it's to be free. Then you can choose to love from power, not desperation. That's the difference between a man who survives relationships and one who masters them. Choose wisely.